the back. Pardon the gorgeous background. I'm in a hotel room in Florida,
That's a very wild background.
yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's what it is. I think it's flowers or something like that. So uh,
Okay. That
anyhow, I should
is
probably, yeah, it's hideous, but it's a
that is quite all right. Okay, David. So now we have David Stein with us. David Stein is from Smith County, and he is running for Republican Party of Texas Vice Chair. So, David, the questions today, and I think we have about, see here, I think we have about 22 questions. There are very few policy questions in here. These are job interview questions that are designed um, to help you demonstrate what your core values and beliefs are, and your management style, and to tell the delegates and alternates how David Stein's background and expertise would inform his decision making in this leadership role. So we'll just dive right in. So the first one, and nothing is timed. I don't have any timed
okay.
limits on you, but we do need to get through all the questions because
Yeah,
all the candidates that before you have all gotten through them fine, without bone crushing rush at the end. So I expect you can do the same thing. So let's just get right into it.
yeah.
Please identify the character qualities, the core beliefs, and the experience that makes you the right choice for vice chair of the Republican Party of Texas.
So character qualities. Give me
Core
those three again.
beliefs, core, character qualities, core
Yeah.
beliefs, and experience.
Okay. So first off, from the character and from the core beliefs, uh, I don't wear my faith on my shoulder. But we've known each other a long time. It's important to me, and I want to live out that faith in a genuine way. I want to be authentic. I don't want to be somebody that I'm not, and don't want to misrepresent. And so, with that, we both answer to a higher calling in that, and we want to make sure that we're honorable in what we say and how we say it. Now, no one's perfect. We sometimes say things that probably could be said in a different way, but integrity is vital. And there's only one kind of integrity. You either have it or you don't have it. And so it is important to me to be a man of my word. I want to be somebody that my kids are proud of. I don't want to do anything that would be embarrassing for my family to hear. So that's what drives me: my faith, my family, my integrity. From the experience standpoint, I think that's the part, because a lot of the candidates running will say the same thing as far as their integrity, people of faith, and things like that. But from an executive experience, obviously being a county commissioner for 2 years was extremely helpful in understanding that part of government. Working as in the corporate world, I was the vice president of sales over about a $60 million medical device organization, which is what moved our family to Texas 30 years ago. And so being able to lead large organizations, the one thing that I've always, and it probably would be a core value, maybe it's a core practice, is that I think a leader sets the tone and sets the environment. I've always believed that a leader should be someone who creates an environment where people can thrive. And so we obviously would have to build the staff back up at Texas GOP. It's a small staff that's right now, and there are a lot of things that we would need to get done that organization, that team building, all of those things that would be extremely helpful. It seems like that wherever I go, and I'm grateful for this. I really don't want this to come out the wrong way. People ask me to join in. They ask me my opinion, and then they ask me to lead. And whether it's been the promotions in business, or whether it's the work in my church, or the work in the nonprofit community, the work, people just seem to ask me, look, you've got something to give, you're willing to give it. We think you've got a good opinion. We'd like you to be a part of the leadership.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So Mr. Stein, where can the job description for the Republican Party of Texas Vice Chair be found? And so once a person found those, could you list a few of those official duties?
Well, the short answer to the official duties is you're really serving at the pleasure of the chair. I mean, you're supporting the chair, you're supporting the mission of the chair, you're supporting the direction that the chair wants to take the party. I'm going to bring a certain skill set to that, and if the chair chooses to use those, then that's great. I'm going to offer what I have, what I'm good at, what I think I can do, where I think I can help, and let the chair implement that as would need to be, as she would see fit.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think, and just to further clarify, I'm not interested in being a co-chair. I want to make sure that that's spelled out and understood. I'm not interested in being a rogue chair. I'm interested in having a good, cohesive working relationship with the party chair, and working together to grow the party organization.
Okay. Okay. So do you know where those, I don't want you to miss something that you didn't finish saying. So can you tell us where the description of those duties are?
I'm assuming it's on the Texas GOP website. I can't tell you that I've read it and
It's
gone
in
down through it.
okay. Well, just to clarify, it's in the SREC bylaws that are on the web. Okay. So where can you find the best indicator of what the Texas Republican Party base believes about key issues? And how do you believe the RPT can best demonstrate to its voter base that they have been heard? And how could you help lead that effort?
Yeah, the voter base, the voter base is in a lot of different places. You've got a base of people that show up at the conventions. You've got people who are on the SREC. You've got people who serve as precinct chairs. You've got people who are volunteers. I don't think the base is just in one place. I think that's one area where that I think we could do a better job. You know, for me as a county chair, there are people who, you know, whether the person is the furthest person to the right that we have in the party, or the person that's furthest to the left in the party. If they're part of the party, I have to represent them. I have to represent all people. I may not agree with everything that each and every person says, but I have to represent those folks. And so one of the flaws that I've seen in politics and in anywhere is that we tend to gravitate towards people of a like-minded opinion. So if all that I do is I talk to people who think like I do, then I'm missing the boat, because I'm missing people who have different ideas and who see issues differently and think there are different solutions that what I may come with. So I just don't think there's one place that you find that. There's a base out there that is the silent majority. You know, when you look at people who come to the convention, you know, we've got right now, I think it's about 9,700 people signed up, and of those, 2,100, I believe, are delegates. So roughly about 7,500 people, and then out of that, whoever shows up, typically 75% of the people that sign up actually go. So if 6 people are at the convention, you know, how many people voted in the primary, and that's part of the base also. So I just think it's from multiple areas.
Okay, so to follow up on that,
Hmm?
would you believe, because I did say, what do you think is the best indicator of what the base is thinking about an issue? So I'm going to direct you over to the ballot
Yeah, I
propositions
was going to
that
go
are
there.
on
Yeah.
every, so do you believe those should play a role in shaping the Republican Party agenda?
Yeah, I do. Yes. I mean, that's the short answer. There's yes. There's different ways to put the information out. One of the things that's always been just a struggle for me is the calls that I get on election day where people, hey, I don't know who to vote for, and I'm like, you've got to do your research. We try to put information out on these things, but just getting folks to really dive in and understand it. So, yeah, that's what, and most of those. I mean, even if you do bell curves on some of those numbers, there's still some overwhelming pieces of evidence that are there. I mean, things, like, I mean, the school choice one probably was one of the lower percentages, I think, on that, but still, it's a pretty divisive issue. It's a pretty split issue. If you look at the primary voters, it looks pretty clear. And then when you hear support that comes from other sources in the community, that's what gets so confusing at times, is if you feel so strongly about this way, why didn't you vote in the primary? Why didn't you make your voice heard?
Okay. Current party rules allow for the SREC to censure a Republican office holder that violates the party's core principles. Do you think that we should have this rule? Why or why not?
So I do, but I'm going to quote the chair of the rules committee on something. Is I filled in as a proxy for Donnie Weisenbaker in the December meeting, and the issue of the censure of the speaker came up. So the way that I read that rule is, my interpretation of it, I see wording in there that says before the primary filing. And to me, that means that the party is not going to get involved in a censure motion of an elected official once the primary filing has started, meaning we're not going to put our finger on the scale. And so that was part of the debate. And what the chair of the committee said to me is that, well, it really is a poorly written rule. And that bothered me to hear that. I think the rule is a tool. I think it's something that should be there, but I think it's got to be cleaned up. I think we've got to have clear definitions so there is no ambiguity as to when it is appropriate to use that. If the majority votes to say we can censure at any time, even the 2-year period, there's some ambiguity in that. What is the definition of a biennium? And so I think it's a good tool to use. I would like to see clearer definitions so that it could be applied appropriately without any questions on its validity.
Okay. What are some examples of actions you believe that would represent clear violations of the party's core principles?
Well, I mean, someone who undermines core priorities for the party, if there was pro-life legislation that someone was purposely trying to diffuse, defeat, thwart, that would be a problem. I mean, it's the core principles of the party, I think, are significant. Do I think, when you look at the issue of the Democratic chairs, that is a way to get business done. That is a way on how it is that we conduct business. It's not so much we want you to accomplish this. That one is, this is how we want you to do something. And the belief that it does cause issues when it comes to legislation. And so, and I think one of the things with the information that Brett Rogers uncovered was there was a lot to go around. A bill's getting killed in committees, by both Democrat and, and Republican chairs. So personally, I don't know if I would hold pro-life versus, being anti-life and Democratic committee chairs in the same breath. But I think violating things that the party believes are ledge priorities, we have to pass legislation that secures the border. I'm disappointed that it took us 4 sessions to finally get there, and even with the bill that we had. So those are some particular examples. Defining, defeating a core principle of the party. And I view the principles different than I do the priorities. And what I mean by that, a principle is this is what we believe. This is a foundation. These are our core values. A priority, like who would think that of the priorities we had last session that we would need to put those priorities, who would think that we'd have to pass a priority that says we need to stop gender mutilation? I mean, it's unconscionable that we would even think that we'd be there. So did I answer that properly?
Well, you answered the question.
Okay,
You answered it. If you're elected the RPT vice chair, what are some of the tangible metrics that Republicans could use to determine if you had been successful?
The most important ones are winning elections and voter turnout.
Okay.
That's really where it. Well, let me back up. Let's add good legislation in that also. It's more to it than just getting people elected. We need the right legislation passed. We need a lot of wins, but winning in elections and getting voter turnout up and winning in legislative session.
Okay. If you're elected vice chair, what percentage of the party's annual budget would you like to see in donations of $100 or less? And what would the RPT need to do to increase these lower dollar donations?
So, we've raised money in Smith County with events, with donations for products. Those have been mainly what's funded us. And I don't like to go to the well too often. If I don't have a specific task that I'm trying to fund, I don't like to ask just for the sake of asking. We keep money in the bank. So I don't know if I've got a number, but I do know that we need a lot of large donors pretty quick. And one of the targets that I would really be going after is the $100 donations and less create your involvement. So that helps to build your crowd, your audience. It gets people involved. It gets them feeling as a part of a team. In the same breath, you need a lot of those. I mean, if we're going to get back to $3 million in the bank, I mean, you're going to need a lot of those donations to get there. And re-engaging people who used to give to the party, people that don't even know what the party needs. I've used, so the radio station in our community, KVNE, I use them as an example, who's been just miraculous in fundraising in what they've done. And they've gotten people around the cause, and they've talked about the specifics of what they're doing with the money. And here's what it's going for, and here's the people it's helping, and here's what it's doing. So I think that part of messaging will help, but there's a lot of folks out there who we can engage. And I'm not talking about million and 100,000s, but there's a lot of people out there who would write 5, 10, 20, $25,000 checks with the right ask. So okay. I can't tell you I've budgeted, but I would say, I think normally something like that, you're probably looking at a third, maybe. Realistically, just because of the way that those numbers add up.
Okay. There is a perception that party officials must place value on opinions of high dollar donors over the identified priorities of Republican primary voters and those of the convention delegates who serve to represent the interests back home. Do you believe this is an accurate perception? And if so, why or why not?
That party officials feel that way?
That party officials must place value on
No,
opinions of high dollar donors over that of Republican primary voters and then the
no.
delegates, the people who
So
are trying to reflect the platform. So do you believe that that's an accurate perception?
no, I don't operate that way. I mean,
Okay.
they're all important.
Okay.
They're all to me, they're an equal voice. There are people who would love to go to the convention and love to be a part, and they just can't. Somebody who says, it's the widow and the two mites.
Mm.
So it's just is that not everybody can give $10,000, but I'll be darned if that person who gives $5 doesn't have as important a voice as the person that gives a big check.
Okay. Okay. Do you support legalizing casino or online sports gambling in Texas? Why or why not?
Um, I'm not an expert in all of the numbers in that. But from my personal perspective, I know it would fund a lot of things, but I would not want to see us go there. I would rather we find different ways to fund what we do. The phrase, and as long as you've known me, you know that where I get a lot of my wisdom from. But what gain is it if you gain the whole world and lose your soul? I don't think that that's a direction that I would want to see the party go. There's got to be other ways. We hear about the lottery. There's a whole lot of those things that just don't tend to pan out, and so
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Do you support legalizing or decriminalizing marijuana in Texas? Why or why not?
Same answer is just I think medicinal marijuana, when it's prescribed properly, which is something that's already been through the legislature, I think that has got its place. But a little step leads to another step that leads to another step that leads to another step. A lot of folks refer to it as a gateway drug. And when you hear statements like, what's the harm in it? I think we become too desensitized to something that has too many harmful effects. It's the same thing, where people say, and I get the argument about marijuana versus alcohol. It's the same argument. I can handle it. It's only one this, it's only one that. So, I wouldn't support that.
Okay. Thank you. Have you ever testified at a legislative hearing? And if you have, approximately when was that and on what topics did you testify?
So I went down once last year, and I believe it was either late January or early February. But I specifically testified on the bill that moved the election fraud felony from a misdemeanor back to a felony. And so that was with, our Senator Brian Hughes chaired that one, and Paul Betancourt was on that. Mays Middleton, I remember, was on that, and he and I actually had a discussion about it after we had finished testifying. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I've submitted testimony online.
Sure.
Okay. But I can't cite and quote, but there probably were 8 to 10 times I did that.
Okay. Does it anything stand out in your mind as a specific topic that you might have sent the written testimony in on?
There was one, I know there was a bill affecting county chairs. I think there was something
Okay.
on the border.
Okay.
I just, yeah, I'd really
Okay.
have to go back and look at that, but no.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Please describe specific ways that you have supported the work of conservative grassroots in Texas.
Well, I mean, conservative grassroots are a lot of people. And so, growing the party base, trying to get people involved, trying to increase the voter turnout, trying to increase the number of precinct chairs that we have, participating in events in and around the community. I mean, all of that goes into our conservative grassroots, folks like that. So, I try to attend as many events as I can. You can't be everywhere. You can't be all things to all people, but I want to make sure that that each group feels represented. I hope they do. I know at times some do and some don't, but
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Do you believe that RPT has and is doing enough on election integrity and ballot security? Be as specific as you possibly can to explain your answer.
well, the RPT isn't right now because we don't have anyone there. The last person that we had, I believe the funding for that program ended in December. So technically, the SREC discusses different programs, and I know they're involved in some different things, but to that extent, no. I know the RNC has just, the RNC has just brought on someone as the election integrity director, I think is the title for Texas. And I actually spoke with her and a group of people yesterday, and just looking at some of the initiatives that are there. So I think there are efforts out there. For example, recruitment of attorneys is something that's been discussed. Is how can we have a concerted effort? Now, obviously, they have to understand this is pro bono. We're not billing by the hour to do this, but that's a group of folks, because I'm concerned with the election integrity. Yes, somebody can become a poll watcher and somebody can take the training, but that still is really a relatively inexperienced person that's there acting as the watchdog for that. So someone who gets already how the law works, people affiliated with a litigious society, could be folks that could be recruited for that. So right now, it's the RNC is trying to provide some of those resources, but again, funding for what we could do with the RPT, if we had regional people out operating again, even if it was on a volunteer basis somewhat, that it takes a lot more feet on the street going out and meeting those folks. So how do we meet the attorneys? We have a couple attorneys that serve as precinct chairs, and so utilizing those folks to help really get this word out. Because I had never, until I heard of that about a year and a half ago, I had never really thought of that as an option.
Okay, so is there are many facets of election integrity, vulnerabilities in election integrity and ballot security. So are there any specific types of things that come to mind that you think need to be corrected with legislation?
Well, one of the things that the last legislation did, and I understand that you had people that I think in 2021 when it was passed, that people had just bought certain types of equipment, and so to pass something that says, look, I know you just spent this money last year, but you got to spend more money again this year. So I believe they have until 2026 in which to get all of their equipment updated. I talked to Bob Hall at length I shouldn't say at length, but probably 10 minutes or so when he spoke at your meeting a month or so ago, and just understanding more of his proposal. I had talked to him in Austin last session, met with him outside of a committee hearing on that. And he's got some interesting ideas in there that I think could help really shore up the process, shortening the. And I'm sorry, the room I'm in is absolutely freezing. Shortening up the voting period. I think there's some merit to that. I like his concept of a voting period where the box never moves. I think there's some merit to there. I actually was unaware that he was not advocating hand counting ballots. I had always thought all along he was talking about hand counting, which as you know, we got a pretty good good test run locally in Smith County as to how that would be conducted. What would a hand count look like on that? And it's pretty laborious. But the paper ballots, with the way that we're doing it in Smith County right now, it seems like it works. The study that your organization did in 2020, there were a lot of inefficiencies that seem to have been cleared up with an effective EA, but it does bode, brings the question, so what happens if you don't have an effective EA? What do we really do about it? Let's say a county has someone that's just not efficient. They may be a nice person, but they're not efficient. The fact that we only have one drop box. A lot of my friends from where I grew up have said if we could do in our state what you guys have done in Texas, we'd be so much better off. But the mail-in ballots, we've corrected some of the measures to make sure the people who are mailing in ballots truly need it. And it's not just something that's, it's made too easy for people. So those kind of things, reducing the number of mail-in ballots, which have gone significantly down, shortening the voting period, I think is something that is reasonable. The voting centers, even from the standpoint where countywide voting is convenient for a lot of folks, but the concept of voting centers, precinct-based, is something that works also. So, and I'm kind of just, spitballing around, some of that. I am more concerned about some of the other states. I think Texas has done well to hone in on some of these things. Harris County continues to be the poster child. And, when you have people that are wanting to act nefariously, you've got to have some mechanism in order to stop that. And if you've got DAs that won't do it, then you've got to have an attorney general who will, which we do.
Okay. All right. So think about a conflict or a fork in the road experience in your life. Maybe one that was painful or one that had long-lasting impact. What shaped your decision-making and your actions? And how does that experience inform your decision-making today?
Boy, there's a bunch of those. I'll go with the first thing that came to my mind, because there's a number of failures that you learn from. My dad and I were political and social opposites, and loved my dad, good dad, but he became very belligerent towards the end of his life. And conversations became very, very difficult. And I just tried to diffuse it, and he would go on and on. And anyway, 2 months before he died, on the bed that he died in, we're talking, and it was just me and him. And he says, "Look, we got time. Level with me. What is it with you and Trump?" This was in 2020. And I'm like, "Dad, come on. You're in a hospital. We're not doing this now." And I'm fine. Of course you're fine. You're in a hospital. That's where people go when they're fine. But then he said, you know, the biggest disappointment of you with me is your faith in your politics. And it kind of stung to hear that. And it wasn't him, and I get it. And I think from that, what I've learned is that, you know, people say things, and if you can remove yourself from the situation and not take everything personally, and either think, you know what, that person wasn't acting like themselves, it was a bad day, you give them the benefit of the doubt. You know, there are, and we as Republicans, there's a lot of similar things that we want. We may differ in how we go about them, but yeah, I just don't fire back like I used to. You know, I don't get as angry as I used to about certain things. I don't get as riled up about certain things. I'm pretty even keeled. I think I've been that for a long time. You know, I don't have a face that looks upset. But I think it's just things like that. I think it's the personal failures where you just remind yourself that's not who God called you to be. You know, God didn't call you to let your failures define, you know, who you are. Uh, you know, get up off, you know, stop feeling sorry for yourself. You know, get up on your feet. You know, have faith to do what I've called you to do.
Okay, thank you. Reflect on the state of our state and our nation with the serious challenges that we have in front of us, and cite what you believe are the two biggest threats or challenges to Texas. And what should the RPT do to lead the way on facing these challenges? And what would you do?
Well, the first part is the winning of elections. I mean, we've got to, you know, especially things, the opportunities that we have in the Rio Grande Valley. We have communities, you know, we have the Hispanic community, we have the African American community, we have the Jewish community. Actually, I saw it on X, I think it was today, where this guy was saying that I have been a left-wing liberal my entire life, but the recent actions of the Democrat Party and the lack of support, and this is a Jewish person, the lack of support for the nation of Israel has really caused me to reevaluate my thoughts. And here's somebody that's at the right place at the right time, that is now open and ready to hear that message. And I think we have to be available to those people, in particular, this timing now, to gain them. You know, the Apostle Paul said, I became as the Jew in order to gain the Jew. You know, I didn't become that person. I didn't, you know, I became as the lawless to gain the lawless. And so you're speaking in a language that those people can understand. I think the RPT standpoint, I think we have to be more, I think we have to demonstrate that we are more open to folks. And I think as a party, and when I say the party, I'm talking about the party leadership now. Things like, and I, you know, this is something that I did take personally because of my background, but I thought we had an opportunity at the SREC meeting back in December to do something good when we said we would not associate with Nazi sympathizers and things like that. And I thought that was a missed opportunity. And then they came back and did it, which tells me that it was the best thing to do. And I said, man, we have this golden opportunity right here, and we just didn't take advantage of it. You know, when is there a wrong time to do the right thing? And so it doesn't mean that we compromise our values. You know, if somebody is pro-choice and wants to vote Republican, am I going to tell that person I don't want their vote? I'm going to welcome them to vote Republican, but I'm also going to let them know, look, I'm not backing down on what I believe. I'm pro-life. And so you've got to understand that you're welcome in this party, but this party has core foundations and core beliefs that we are holding true to. And while you're welcome to be in this room, it doesn't mean that we're going to change who we are to accommodate an area that you and I disagree.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-oh.
I'm not sure what happened. Here she comes.
Okay.
So let me repeat that question. What character qualities do you value most in your relationships, and explain why?
Integrity.
Okay.
Because if you're not a genuine, true individual, then what are you? I mean, you're going to make mistakes, and you know we can use an expression. Well, that person means well, but I don't want anybody saying that I'm a phony. I want people to say, look, you know what? I disagree with him. I don't like what he said. I don't like what he did, but I'm not going to question the guy's integrity.
Okay. What are your thoughts on extending opportunities for booth space at the RPT convention to groups whose stated mission violates the Republican Party of Texas platform? So now I'm not asking you to be specific on what those groups would be, but and to single out anybody unless you want to. But are you okay with extending opportunities for booth space to people whose stated mission is in violation of the Republican Party platform?
Yeah. So the short answer to that is no. It goes back to what I had said before about, you know, what good is it if you gain the whole world and lose your soul? I think it is also disingenuous of an organization to take someone's money just for the sake of taking their money and having no. I think that now if there are organizations who may be less conservative than other organizations, but don't go outside of the party platform, I personally don't have an issue there. If someone, let's say that someone is an organization who is, let's say they're, and I can't even give you an example, but let's say an organization is not even a political organization, but they just want, like Patriot Mobile, right? I mean, they come in and things like that. If there's an organization that says, look, I want to make a stand, I want people to know that I support this Republican Party, I think those kind of things, you know, I'm in agreements with.
Okay, so but to be clear, if their mission, their stated mission in their own words is in opposition to the Republican Party platform, then you don't think they should be allowed to get booth space. Is that correct?
So I don't know what the legality is of that. I don't know. My personal opinion is no. But what I don't know is, does that open us up for any type of lawsuit? What are the ramifications of saying that? No, my personal belief is no, but I would want a counselor to make sure that I'm not doing anything that would put the organization in jeopardy or a legal compromise.
Okay, thank you. While cultural Marxism has been on the rise in our nation for many decades, the COVID shutdown pulled back the cover, and since then, more people have begun to see the effects of cultural Marxism on children and future generations. What can the Republican Party of Texas do better to protect children, and how would you be willing to lead on this issue?
Well, we've gotten some good legislation passed the last session dealing with the drag shows. Part of it is wrapping my mind around the lunacy of even some of these things that people are trying to promote. I think we have to enforce the laws. I support, what's going on the college campuses. It's different than what went on in the 1960s. It looks the same, but the ramifications are much more serious. There are some of us who are old enough, and we're shaped by our experiences. And I will never forget my experience going through the Holocaust Museum and seeing people who are survivors of the Holocaust in that museum. You don't forget things like that. And so, when I see people discriminating against, whether you want to take a religious perspective and say God's chosen people, or just take a secular perspective and just say, a race of people. I mean, how can we support, that type of activity and that type of action? So I think we have to be a mouthpiece. I think that we have to make sure that is brought to people's attention. Again, that's also about creating the atmosphere. It's not being afraid to speak out on certain issues. And I just think that, it's important. We have an issue that, the one that's near and not so dear to our hearts is what we're trying to get done in the public library. And I'm not happy with the progress or lack thereof that we've gotten on this issue. And so we have to continue to bring these battles to the forefront. We have to continue to bring these issues so people are aware of them, how we go about them. We've got to find a way to be successful in these endeavors. But, keeping the schools safe is important. The standpoint of just school safety officers, keeping the kids safe while they're in schools, keeping the indoctrination out. I honestly don't know what you do on the college campuses. I mean, right now it's beyond anybody's reality of what's actually happened. We have to enforce the rules and the laws. These kids have to understand. I mean, even some of the comments that you see is that, there's no comment about these students about, wait a minute, you're saying that these people have rights. Well, wait a minute, they weren't the one that started this fight. They weren't the ones that initiated the attack. Anyhow, sorry, I'm passionate about that, but I can get wound up about it.
Okay, thank you. In the preamble and principles of the Republican Party of Texas platform, it lists several principles the RPT vows to promote. Please name as many of those principles as possible.
Well, I mean, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, pro-freedoms and, individual liberty, rugged Texas individualism. Those are the ones that come quickly to my mind. I mean, honoring God, that's vital, and understanding that while not everybody follows the mantra of honoring God, it is a part of our culture of who we are, in particular in Texas. And so, those are the ones that come to my mind quickly.
Okay. And this next question, please try to be very as specific as you can. In your current role, how have you fought for the Republican priorities as identified by the primary voters and by the delegates?
Well, I'm thinking specifically on the priorities. Obviously, testifying, from the election integrity side, that was important. We talk about border security. I can't tell you if there's anything specifically that I've personally done supporting candidates who, we've got, of course, I mean, Schaefer's, been a great state rep to have, and he's had some good legislation out there. And so supporting our elected officials in trying to do that, I mean, by us raising awareness in the community, by us getting out the vote, making sure that we keep statewide elected officials Republican, making sure that we elect the conservative folks locally. I mean, that's how I view the job as a county chair. As my job is to let's elect the most conservative person that we can get, so that we can send that person to Austin so that they do pass good legislation which supports the priority. My job as a county chair is not to be a legislator. My job is to get the right people in place so that we can get that legislation passed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've reached the end of the specific questions, and so now is your opportunity to close the deal. This is your chance, Mr. Stein, to raise any issue that I have not addressed with you, to share any passion that you have for this specific job, or any pet peeve that the delegates and alternates should know about you, and why they should vote for you. So it's your chance to just tell them anything and everything they need to know. It's your time to close the deal. Thank you for being with us.
No, you bet it. No, you fine. That's fine. So, you know, in the video that I put together, it really outlined the things that I want to see us focus on. So, you know, number one is we've got to raise money. We just have to raise money because it funds the initiatives that I think that we need to be involved in order to help the party be more successful. Some of those initiatives, including the election integrity effort. How do we put together trainings? How do we put together outreaches where we are communicating with people on not just a one-time basis, but in an ongoing basis? You know, how do we from the voter turnout? So how do we engage people in a get out the vote effort? So being a county chair, I'm focused on a lot of the county chair issues. And I believe that as an organizational leader, you know, I can't talk to 8,000 delegates. I can't talk to 16 million registered voters. But what I can do is I can build the county chair organization, the work that we've done with TRCCA, that I'm really proud of what we did. We worked hard last summer. I mean, we got out to more than half of the county chairs across the state of Texas and training these folks on how to run their primaries, on how to run conventions, and the appreciation that you see of, man, nobody ever comes out here. We appreciate the fact that you guys took time in order to do that. Now, for a while, we were doing it on our own dime. We got some funding in, and that was helpful to us. And so we were able to at least, you know, pay for our cost and things like that. But getting out amongst, one of the things that I clearly would do is from day one, you know, obviously with the blessing of the state chair, is to go throughout the state and let's have, you know, meetings where we're there 10 at a time or 20 at a time, what have you, but do a round table and talk about, look, what do you guys need? What's holding you back? Training is got to be funded, and there's a lot that you can do on Zoom from a training standpoint, but with 60 to 70 new county chairs every election cycle, you know, I remember what it was like. I'm here 4 years and I feel like a grizzled, you know, people look at me like a grizzled veteran, and I feel like I'm still on this learning curve. And so the training for county chairs and for precinct chairs, and we used to have those folks within RPT, and it takes money to fund that. So the training, the get out the vote, the election integrity, the precinct chair recruitments. What you inspect, you can't expect what you don't inspect. And it's not so much as just an accountability, but it's the way that we train people. It's the way that information is transferred. And, we've got the staff at RPT right now. They're all great people. They're just understaffed, and there's no way that they can really do. And so my job, again, is I think we have to raise the money so that we can hire people who can be this good, effective field staff, who can promote the message, who can train the people to do what it is that they need to do. And then how do you help a county chair find good conservative candidates in their areas? So those are the things that really, I want to focus on. What's the most important thing? Most important thing is winning. Because if you lose, you got nobody you can talk to. If you win, now I can work on the influence with these folks. Who is it that we're going to work with? And, my attitude has always been, when the primaries are over, it's one team, it's one voice. We need to elect Donald Trump. And I don't care whether you voted for him or not in the primary. He's our candidate. He was a fantastic president. And we do not want another 4 years of what we've been experiencing. And if we can get that man back in the White House, this country is going to be a lot better off. Our Senator Ted Cruz is not safe. Anybody that thinks he's a slam dunk to win, I think that's a mistake. I hope he squashes all red, but I don't know that. You play like you're behind. So, we need efforts. It's another thing for this summer is what I've noticed in the past is each campaign has their own representatives, and it creates a diffused effort from a county standpoint. So if I've got Daniel Alder's people, and I've got Ted Cruz's people, and I've got Donald Trump's people, and all of them want my volunteers to be able to count their specific houses and their specific hours. Look, that doesn't work for me. What I want to do is I want to take one person and have them represent every single Republican candidate as they're going out. So getting people aware of the election, and then a massive get out the vote effort when it comes time. We've done things in Smith County which I think have been helpful. For example, we took our database of Republican voters or of the voter database, and then took the database of people who had voted in the primary, so like the Republican voters. And then this was during the general election with Governor Abbott against our Robert Francis. And we then matched that with the people that had already voted. And what we're able to do is to spit out a list, precinct by precinct, that our precinct chairs could call and text to say, hey, Ms. Fleming, this is David Stein from Smith County. You've been a great Republican voter for many, many years. I noticed you hadn't voted yet in this election. Election day's tomorrow. We need you. Please go out and vote. So it's just things like that move the needle. And those are things for me as a county chair, and that I believe as a vice chair would be vital towards the success of the party. I will work my tail off. I don't think there's anybody who even disagrees with me on every single issue I have who won't say that guy works his butt off. I work hard. I'm out there all the time. I'm representing the party in the best way that I think. I make mistakes. I'm human. But I promise the delegates is that if they elect me, I'm going to work. I'm going to do the job, and I'm going to work so that they feel. And it's like I said in my proposals of my business. We're going to work hard so that if you bring us in, you'll be happy with your decision.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time this afternoon, Mr. Stein. Good job.
Right at an
Thank you.
hour. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay,
And I was
thank
brief,
you.
wasn't I, at times?
Yes. Yes, you were.
Miraculously. But I
Okay.
really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a good day. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.